I stared at my reflection in the mirror of my Tesla, taking a deep breath before heading into the upscale restaurant where my father's 60th birthday celebration was being held. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks ago, not from my father of course, but from my stepmother Diana, who never missed an opportunity to showcase her perfect family. I'm Isabella Morgan, though my father and his new family prefer to pretend the Morgan part doesn't exist, my mother's name, which I kept after she passed away 12 years ago. The same year my father married Diana, trading in his grieving 15-year-old daughter for a ready-made family with 2 more successful stepchildren. Now at 27 I ran my own tech company, though they didn't know that. As far as they were concerned, I was still struggling with my little startup, living off the modest trust fund my mother left me. They had no idea that Morgan Technologies was now worth billions, or that I'd deliberately kept my identity as its founder hidden. Name? The hostess asked as I entered the private dining room. Isabella, I replied, watching as she checked the guest list. Ah yes, here you are. She reached for a name tag and I saw Diana's elaborate handwriting. My stomach turned as I read it, the disappointment. For a moment I considered turning around and leaving. But no, I had a plan for tonight. One that had been 12 years in the making. Isabella, you actually came. Diana's voice carried across the room, drawing attention from the gathered guests, mostly her friends and family, with a few business associates of my father's thrown in. We weren't sure you'd make it given your limited means. I forced a smile, accepting the champagne flute a waiter offered. I wouldn't miss Dad's birthday. Of course not, she smirked, eyeing my simple black dress. Though you could have made more of an effort. This is Le Cirque, darling, not some startup coffee shop. What she didn't know was that my simple dress was a custom-made Valentino, worth more than her entire outfit. But that wasn't part of my plan, not yet. My stepbrother Marcus swaggered over, his latest Rolex glinting. Hey sis. Still working on that app thing? Something like that, I replied vaguely. Well, not everyone can be successful, my stepsister Olivia chimed in, joining us. We can't all be senior VPs at Fortune 500 companies. She gestured to herself and Marcus proudly. I sipped my champagne, thinking about the email I'd received this morning. Their company Richardson Global was about to be acquired. The announcement would hit the markets tomorrow morning. The buyer? A shell company owned by Morgan Technologies by me. My father finally approached, looking uncomfortable but not saying anything about the name tag Diana had given me. Isabella. You look nice. Thanks, Dad. Happy birthday. Diana clapped her hands, gathering everyone's attention. Time for speeches. Marcus, Olivia, why don't you start? I watched as my stepsisters took turns praising their amazing father figure and his perfect wife. They bragged about their successes, their promotions, their luxury cars, all while shooting pointed looks in my direction. Then Diana turned to me with a predatory smile. Isabella, would you like to say something about your father? The room fell silent, probably expecting me to embarrass myself. Instead I stood slowly, raising my glass. Actually, I said, my voice clear and steady, I would. The smile froze on Diana's face as I moved to the center of the room. What happened next would change everything. I stood there, champagne glass in hand, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. The name tag reading, the disappointment, felt like it was burning against my chest, but I kept my composure. When I was 15, I began, my voice carrying across the hushed room, my mother died. Cancer. She spent her last days worried about me, about my future. Promise me you'll become something extraordinary, she'd said. Promise me you won't let anyone dim your light. I saw my father shift uncomfortably in his seat. Diana's smirk had faded slightly. 2 months after we buried her, Dad married Diana. Suddenly, I had a new mother who didn't want me, and 2 new siblings who made it their mission to remind me daily that I wasn't good enough. Isabella, my father warned, but I continued. Do you remember what you said to me on my college graduation day, Diana? When I told you about my business idea. I turned to face her directly. You said, dear, some people are meant to be successful and others are meant to watch from the sidelines. Know your place. Marcus snickered, but Olivia looked slightly uncomfortable now. And you, Dad? Do you remember what you said when I asked for help starting my company? Don't embarrass me with your pipe dreams. Look at Marcus and Olivia, they have real careers. The The room had grown so quiet you could hear the ice clinking in the glasses. So I made a promise to myself. I would succeed not just for my mother but despite all of you. And you know what? I reached up and slowly peeled off the disappointment name tag, placing it on the table. I did. Diana stood up, her face reddening. That's enough. You can't come to your father's birthday party and dash. Actually, I cut her off. I'm not finished. You see, tomorrow morning something interesting is going to happen at Richardson Global. Marcus and Olivia exchanged worried glances. They knew their company had been struggling, but they didn't know about the acquisition yet. What are you talking about? Marcus demanded. I pulled out my phone and projected an image onto the restaurant's wall screen, typically used for business presentations. It showed tomorrow's press release already queued for the morning news. Richardson Global acquired by Morgan Technologies in surprise $4.2 billion deal, I read aloud. Interesting headline, isn't it? The color drained from both their faces as I continued. Even more interesting is that as part of the restructuring, all senior management will be required to reapply for their positions. I smiled directly at my step-siblings, including any vice presidents who got their jobs through family connections rather than merit. This is ridiculous, Diana sputtered. You can't possibly dash. I clicked to the next slide, showing my official corporate biography as CEO and founder of Morgan Technologies. Actually, I can. And I did. The room erupted in whispers. Several of my father's business associates were already on their phones, presumably checking the validity of my claims. But your startup, Marcus stammered, was a cover. Morgan Technologies operates globally, specializing in AI and quantum computing. We're valued at $28 billion as of last quarter. I paused, letting that sink in. Those pipe dreams paid off rather well, wouldn't you say, Dad? My father had gone pale, his birthday cake sitting untouched in front of him. Diana was gripping the table so hard her knuckles had turned white. So, I continued, raising my glass again, I'd like to make a toast. To the last time you'll ever see me. To the end of being your disappointment. And to my mother, who taught me that success is the best revenge. I drained my glass and set it down carefully. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope, placing it on the table. What's that? Diana asked, her voice barely a whisper. That's the other surprise, I replied, heading for the door. I'll let you read it for yourselves. As I walked out, I heard the scramble of papers being pulled from the envelope, followed by a collective gasp. Because what I'd left behind would shake their perfect little world to its core. The envelope I left behind contained 3 documents that would destroy their carefully constructed facade. The first was a detailed investigation report revealing how Diana and my father had systematically embezzled funds from my mother's medical care fund during her final months, money that should have gone to experimental treatments that might have saved her life. The second was proof that Marcus and Olivia's meteoric rise at Richardson Global had been orchestrated through corporate espionage and insider trading crimes that would not only cost them their positions but could lead to federal prosecution. The third? A letter from my mother, written days before her death, expressing her suspicions about Dad and Diana's relationship long before she passed away. As I walked to my car, my phone exploded with notifications. I switched it to silent, but not before seeing Diana's frantic messages. Please come back, we can explain. You don't understand. Think about what you're doing to this family. Family. The word almost made me laugh. The next morning, I watched from my penthouse office as the news broke. Richardson Global's stock plummeted as the acquisition was announced. Marcus and Olivia's names were trending on social media as their insider trading scheme came to light. My father and Diana's reputations were in shambles as the investigation into my mother's medical care fund gained traction. Ms. Morgan, my assistant Sarah buzzed in. Your father is in the lobby. He's been here for 3 hours. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows looking down at the city below. Let him wait. Another hour passed before I finally allowed him up. When he entered my office, he looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. Isabella, he said, his voice breaking. I didn't know about the medical fund. Diana said she was handling everything. Stop lying, I said quietly. I have the transfer records with your signature. You chose her over Mom's life. He collapsed into a chair. I was weak. Diana. She had a way of making everything sound reasonable. But I never thought that you'd get caught. I finished for him. Or that your disappointment of a daughter would be the one to expose it all. Please, he begged. Marcus and Olivia, they'll go to prison. Diana and I could face charges. You can stop this. I sat down behind my desk, the same desk where I'd spent countless nights building my company while they mocked my efforts. You know what I remember most about Mom's funeral? I asked, ignoring his plea. Not the service, not the flowers, but the party you and Diana threw afterward. A celebration of your new beginning, you called it. You couldn't even wait until Mom was cold in her grave. I made mistakes, Dash. No, I cut him off. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. A mistake is making a bad investment. What you did was a choice. Multiple choices every day for years. My phone buzzed. The FBI had just arrived at Diana's yoga class to arrest her. Right on schedule. The investigation files have already been sent to the authorities, I informed him. Marcus and Olivia's insider trading evidence has been forwarded to the SEC. And Mom's letter? It's being published in tomorrow's New York Times. You've destroyed us, he whispered. No, Dad. You destroyed yourselves. I just exposed the truth. Security arrived to escort him out. At the door he turned back one last time. Was it worth it? He asked. Destroying your family for revenge? I looked at him coldly. My family died with Mom. You're just the people who taught me how to be successful. After he left, I sat in my office as the sun set over the city. My phone kept buzzing with messages from reporters seeking comments on the scandal. Instead of responding, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old photo of me and Mom at my 15th birthday, both of us smiling, unaware of what lay ahead. I did it, Mom, I whispered. I became something extraordinary. And I didn't let anyone dim my light. The next day's headlines told the whole story. Tech billionaire exposes family scandal. Richardson Global VPs face federal charges. Prominent couple arrested for medical fund fraud. But I didn't need to read them. I was already focused on my next acquisition, my next success. Because the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's thriving despite those who tried to hold you down. As for the name tag that read, The Disappointment, I had it framed. It hangs in my office now, a reminder that sometimes the people who underestimate you the most become the stepping stones to your greatest achievements.